Within the black light, 12 L-series subjects walked out. They did not look like ordinary illusions. Nor did they look like completely real people. They were more like projections created by the third level, casting the already formed L-series beneath the old salt road into the observation cavity. Each one had an L number on the chest. L01 through L12. Their breathing was orderly. Their steps were orderly. Even the frequency of their blinking was nearly identical. That kind of consistency made people instinctively uncomfortable. Because they were still living people. Yet they had already been arranged into something like a weapon. A prompt appeared in the observation cavity. Living Military Command Pressure Test. Objective: resist the L-series offensive without causing irreversible death, identify reversible individuals, and stop military command from completing third-level recording. Failure conditions. 1. Mistaken killing exceeds 3 people. 2. Give up identification and treat all L-series subjects as enemy troops. 3. The core bearer of the Obsidian registers is suppressed by military command. 4. Black Tide Military Command completes its formation declaration. Zhao Tai's expression turned ugly when he saw the first condition. Mistaken killing exceeds 3 people? That meant killing was not absolutely forbidden. But if they killed wrongly, or killed too many, they would lose. Luo Wence understood Obsidian Village's weakness very well. He put living military command in front of them because he wanted to force them to distinguish people on the edge of a blade. Song Yuan's expression was grave. I can look at fate lines. Lin Yao asked, how long? At least 3 breaths per person. Zhao Tai said angrily, 12 people means 36 breaths. We will have been chopped to pieces by then. Song Yuan did not refute him. That was the flaw of fate pattern observation. Accurate, but slow. Fang Jian was not here. Zhan was not here. The people outside needed to evacuate the trainees. Inside the observation cavity, there were only Lin Yao, Zhao Tai, Xu Fang, and Song Yuan. Lin Yao had to complete the pressure test with the resources he had. He gave quick orders. Zhao Tai, hold the front line. Do not kill. Xu Fang, divide the field with talisman orders. Song Yuan, only look at the most unstable and the most reversible. Do not look at all of them. Song Yuan's eyes lit up. That was the key. Do not seek to identify everyone at once. First find reversible individuals and dangerous individuals. Process them in batches. Xu Fang immediately divided the name-settling talismans, contract withdrawal fragments, and grain bag wooden tags into 3 piles. Although they were inside the observation cavity, his tools could still be used. He marked 3 areas on the ground. Suppression area. Temporary record area. High-risk area. Zhao Tai rushed forward. The 12 L-series subjects moved at the same time. They did not attack chaotically. Instead, they formed groups of 3, like a real army: frontal pressure, side cuts, and rear command. L01, L02, and L03 pushed forward with shields. L04 and L05 cut in quickly from the side. L06 and L07 stood at the rear and recited commands. The remaining 5 spread out, preparing to encircle them. The instant Zhao Tai collided with them, he felt tremendous pressure. It was not that he lacked strength. It was that the other side cooperated too perfectly. He knocked one back, and another immediately filled the gap. He struck L02's shoulder with the back of his blade, and L01 instantly raised a shield to block the second blow. These people showed no obvious fear and did not pause because of injury. Luo Wence's voice sounded inside the black light. Do you see it? After removing individual fear, formation efficiency increases by at least threefold. Lin Yao ignored him. He stared at the L series. Suddenly, he noticed L05's movement slow for an instant. Not because of injury. It was because when Zhao Tai shouted suppress, do not kill, the person's eyes moved. Lin Yao immediately recorded. L05 reacts to the no-kill command. Reversibility pending investigation. Song Yuan looked toward L05, and the stone bead rotated. A reversible fate line exists. But it is pressed very deep by military command. Lin Yao flung out a temporary page of the record of the nameless. L05, temporary record. Xu Fang immediately threw a name-settling talisman into the temporary record area. Zhao Tai seized the chance and swept L05 aside with the back of his blade, forcing him into the temporary record area. The name-settling talisman lit up. L05's movement slowed. The first reversible individual had been separated out. But at the rear, L06 and L07 began chanting commands. Formation first. Individual silence. Ignore pain. Continue orders. As soon as the chant began, L05, who had been forced into the temporary record area, lifted his head again. Military command was trying to pull him back into formation. Fang Jian was not there. No one could specialize in counter-recitation. Lin Yao could only use the contract withdrawal register to hold the line. L05, military command may not stand above the right to withdraw. The light of the contract withdrawal register pressed down part of the chant. But it was not enough. Xu Fang suddenly shouted, L05, you are not a formation gap. Lin Yao looked at him. Xu Fang himself did not know why he shouted that. He only felt that if they kept calling him L05, they were still calling him by a number. But he did not know the person's name, so he could only first deny the military command position assigned to him. That sentence actually worked. L05's eyes shook again. Lin Yao immediately added. L05, not a formation gap. Temporary name pending. Temporary name pending was not a name. But it preserved one more layer than a pure number. L05 was temporarily suppressed. On the other side, Zhao Tai was forced back by 3 L-series subjects. He roared, and almost slashed toward L03's neck with the blade edge. But at the last instant, he forcibly turned the blade and smashed the back of it into the other person's chest. L03 flew backward. His ribs seemed to crack. But he did not die. The observation cavity prompt flickered. Severe injury 1, no death. Zhao Tai gritted his teeth. This is hard as hell. Luo Wence said calmly, you restrict yourselves. They do not. That is the efficiency gap. Lin Yao said coldly, and that is why you always dare to strip people into tools first before talking about efficiency. He observed quickly. L06 and L07 were command reciters. If they were not interrupted, every individual separated out would be pulled back. But they might also be living people. They could not be killed. Zhao Tai, break the rear command. Zhao Tai immediately charged forward. The L-series front line tried to stop him. Xu Fang threw out grain bag wooden tags, and they unexpectedly formed a small area of blocked path markers. Retreat markers. They had originally been used when a team needed to withdraw. Now, they were used in reverse to cut off the L-series pursuit route. The frontline L-series subjects were forced to pause for half a breath. Zhao Tai seized the moment and rushed up to L06, punching below the throat. Not a fatal point, but enough to interrupt the recitation. L06 grunted and retreated. L07 continued reciting. Song Yuan suddenly said, L07 is approaching an irreversible threshold. Lin Yao's eyes tightened. Meaning? He may have already accepted military command deeply and willingly. If we do not forcefully suppress him, he will complete the formation declaration. L07 raised his head. There was almost no individual fluctuation in his eyes. He chanted loudly, "We voluntarily abandon names. We voluntarily become an army. We voluntarily preserve purity through erasure." This was Black Tide Military Command's formation declaration. Once it was completed, the fourth failure condition might be triggered. Lin Yao could not wait. Zhao Tai, severe injury suppression. Zhao Tai did not hesitate. He smashed the back of his blade against L07's knee. The sound of cracking bone rang out. L07 fell to his knees, and the recitation was interrupted. The observation cavity prompted. Severe injury 2, no death. Song Yuan glanced at Lin Yao. That order was difficult. Lin Yao was not refusing to injure people. He was acknowledging necessary severe injury suppression under the condition of not killing. That was also part of the rule. Not softness. Not limitless protection. It was distinguishing purpose and boundary. The battle entered its middle stage. Among the 12 L-series subjects, L05 had been temporarily recorded, L06 command recitation had been interrupted, L07 had been severely suppressed, and L03 was severely injured but alive. The remaining 8 began changing tactics. They no longer tried to attack Lin Yao all at once. Instead, they concentrated on attacking Xu Fang. Because Xu Fang's division talismans were cutting the battlefield apart. Once Xu Fang fell, the temporary record area, the high-risk area, and the suppression area would blend together. Zhao Tai roared, "Xu Fang, retreat!" Xu Fang wanted to retreat, but 2 L-series subjects had already cut in front of him. He was not a main combatant. Against the L-series, he had almost no chance of winning. At that moment, he lowered his head and saw the wooden tag in his hand from the grain bag. He suddenly remembered something Uncle Zhou had once said. The grain bag is not something people grab from just because they are hungry. Once there is disorder, black tide comes faster than hunger. Xu Fang slammed the grain bag onto the ground. Expedition grain account. Divide. Small wooden tags flew out of the grain bag. They were not attacks. They were markers. Each wooden tag landed in a different area. Wounded. High risk. Reversible. Suppression. Pending investigation. These wooden tags formed a temporary diversion formation. When the L-series subjects rushed in front of Xu Fang, the light of the wooden tags blocked them for an instant. A prompt appeared in the observation cavity. Temporary battlefield diversion method formed. Source: Expedition grain account, retreat markers, name settling talismans. Effect: improves classification efficiency on complex battlefields. Lin Yao's heart shook. This was exactly what the Obsidian registers lacked. Efficiency. Not efficiency gained by sacrificing distinction, but efficiency gained by using diversion markers to improve handling speed. Xu Fang himself was stunned. Zhao Tai laughed loudly. Not bad, Xu Fang. The battle situation stabilized. Lin Yao immediately used the diversion wooden tags to begin rapid marking. L01, suppression. L02, suppression. L04, reversible, pending investigation. L08, high risk. L09, faint reversible fate line. L10, highly aggressive, high risk. L11, suspected coerced. L12, unknown. Song Yuan looked only at the three most critical. L04 is reversible. L08 is approaching irreversibility. L11 has strong external traction. Possibly coerced. Lin Yao coordinated the marks. Zhao Tai suppressed according to the marks. Xu Fang maintained the diversion. The battle gradually shifted from chaos to something controllable. Luo Wence's voice finally lost its composure. You are establishing diversion on the battlefield? Lin Yao said, this is where you are wrong. You thought distinction was necessarily slow. But distinction can also be trained into tactics. The gray-white light of the observation cavity flared. Efficiency defect correction for the Obsidian registers, temporary battlefield diversion method. Rule completeness increased. Living military command pressure test entering final stage. The black light began to shrink. The L-series projections gradually became unstable. But Luo Wence did not give up. The 12 L-series subjects lifted their heads at the same time and began one final formation declaration. We voluntarily abandon names. We voluntarily become an army. We voluntarily. Lin Yao opened the contract withdrawal register, the record of the nameless, the responsibility register, and the Obsidian banner shadow order. He interrupted loudly. Voluntary must be withdrawable. Abandoning a name must be temporary if needed. Becoming an army must have boundaries. Failure may not lead to erasure. Formation may not swallow people. The gray-white light pressed down. The L-series declaration was interrupted. The observation cavity shook. Living military command pressure test ended. Deaths, 0. Severe injuries, 2. Reversible individuals identified, 4. High-risk individuals marked, 3. Coerced individuals marked, 1. Unknown individuals preserved, 4. Obsidian registers have passed the pressure test. Black Tide Military Command failed to complete the formation declaration. Zhao Tai sat down heavily on the ground. I'm exhausted. Xu Fang also collapsed into a seated position, hugging the grain bag that had been half emptied. Song Yuan looked at the gray-white light with a complicated expression. You really made it record you. Lin Yao did not relax. Because the black light had not completely disappeared. Luo Wence's voice sounded one last time. Lin Yao, what you defeated this time was a projection. The true L-series are still beneath the old Salt Road. The third level records your rules. It will also record my improvements. Next time, they will be faster. The black light dissipated. But Lin Yao knew Luo Wence was right. A victory in the third level did not mean victory on the real battlefield. The true living nameless army had not yet been rescued. The underground Old Salt Road still existed. But at least in this moment, the Obsidian registers had not been judged uselessly inefficient by the rule observation cavity. They had passed the first true pressure test. At the center of the observation cavity, gray-white light condensed into a token. It was very small. Only half the size of a palm. Its shape did not resemble an ordinary military command token. Nor did it look like a city lord seal. On the front of the token was carved a character that had not yet fully formed. Command. On the back, there were 4 fine lines. Name. Contract. Responsibility. Banner. The 4 fine lines intertwined with each other, forming a structure that was still unstable. A system prompt appeared. The Obsidian Four Principles have been recorded by the observation cavity. The right of temporary name has been recorded by the observation cavity. The temporary battlefield diversion method has been recorded by the observation cavity. The Obsidian registers have passed the living military command pressure test. You have obtained prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command. War Soul altar conditions updated. Obtained sacrificial stone of the remnant army, book command fire, soul pacifying inscription, prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command. Remaining main flame of the War Soul fire seed, altar base stone. Lin Yao reached out and received the token. It was not cold in his hand. Instead, it carried a steady weight. It did not feel like a weapon. It felt more like a promise. It represented that the Lord of Obsidian Village was not someone who only raised flags, divided grain, built structures, and sent out troops. When rules collided, the Lord also had to bear the responsibility of judgment. Zhao Tai looked at the token and grinned. This trip was worth the fight. Xu Fang hugged the grain bag and panted. I think my grain bag is about to break. The token trembled faintly. A point of light fell onto Xu Fang's grain bag. A system prompt appeared. The expedition grain bag has obtained battlefield diversion marks. New function, can generate temporary diversion wooden tags on mixed contamination battlefields. Restriction, requires support from a register or the contract withdrawal register. Xu Fang froze. Zhao Tai laughed loudly. Your grain bag grows more abilities than my blade. Xu Fang carefully touched the grain bag. Before this, he had always felt that he was not much of a fighter on the team. But during the observation cavity test, if not for his diversion wooden tags, the L-series pressure test might not have been passed. That made his place in the team more stable. Not everyone had to stand at the very front and cut. Some people saved lives by making the battlefield clear. Song Yuan looked at the prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command, his expression deeply complicated. The Song family will want to know about this. Lin Yao looked at him. You can give them a non-core copy. Song Yuan nodded. I know. But even a non-core copy will be enough to shake the Song family internally. Why? Song Yuan was silent for a moment, then said, because you proved something. Even without relying on fate pattern concealment, and without relying on black tide military command, it is possible to leave one's own order inside the observation of a foreign rule. What hidden families fear most is not a new force becoming stronger. It is new rules bypassing them and being directly recognized by the world. Lin Yao looked at him. The Song family is afraid too? Song Yuan did not deny it. Of course. But fear does not necessarily mean hostility. At least, I now believe Obsidian Village is a rule source that can be negotiated with. Zhao Tai frowned. What do you mean, negotiated with? Song Yuan smiled. It means temporarily not an enemy. Zhao Tai curled his lip. Then you had better keep it that way. The observation cavity began to fade. The third level did not ask any more questions. But before they left, one final passage of text appeared in the center of the space. Warning, Black Tide Military Command has recorded the correction methods of the Obsidian registers. Future L-series subjects will attempt counters against temporary names, withdrawal, and diversion. Warning, the reality synchronization side will produce rule fluctuations. Warning, the rule bearer may be locked onto by multiple parties. Lin Yao looked at the three warning lines without surprise. Every victory brought a higher level of hostility. Now, it was not only Black Tide false soldiers who were hostile to Obsidian Village. Luo Wence would improve the L-series. The second research group would become even more eager to seize the contract withdrawal register. Hidden families would begin observing, and even probing, the Obsidian rules. The pressure from reality would grow heavier. But the prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command was already in hand. The War Soul altar lacked only two conditions. The main flame of the War Soul fire seed. and the altar base stone. If they could completely break the living nameless army during the Old Salt Road operation, the main flame of the war soulfire seed might appear. As for the altar base stone, perhaps it was inside the third level of the Old Salt Road, or within the transit warehouse. The gray-white space split open into an exit. The four of them returned to the underground warehouse beneath the abandoned freight shed. Fang Jian and Zhan immediately came forward. "You're back." Zhao Tai waved a hand. "We're back." Almost died of exhaustion. Zhan looked at the token in Lin Yao's hand. "What is that?" Lin Yao said, "The prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command." Shock appeared in Fang Jian's eyes. He could feel that the token contained a stable force capable of opposing military command slogans. It did not overwhelm language. It gave language boundaries. Can it help fight the L series? Lin Yao nodded. It can. But Luo Wence will also begin countering it. Inside the underground warehouse, the rescued trainees had already been divided into several groups. Those who withdrew. Those who took temporary names. Observers. The gray-robed instructor, who still required responsibility judgment. The exposed erasure bead. The illuminated agreement scrolls. These were all evidence. And they were also people. Lin Yao ordered. Withdraw according to diversion. Temporary name subjects go with Zhan. Withdrawal subjects go with Fang Jian. Observers are watched by Song Yuan and Xu Fang. Zhao Tai escorts the gray-robed instructor. All agreements, command tokens, and erasure beads are sealed. Everyone began moving. The gains this time were great, but so was the danger. Too many people. Too much evidence. If Luo Wence intercepted them outside, evacuation would be extremely difficult. Stone Life returned from outside and brought bad news. There is movement near the relay station. The L series are gathering. Lin Yao's eyes darkened. How many? At least 20. Fang Jian's face went pale. 20 L series subjects. This was no longer the 12 projections inside the observation cavity. This was a true living military command formation. And right now, they were escorting a group of people who had just withdrawn, taken temporary names, or wavered. They could not fight head-on. Zhao Tai asked, "Fight or retreat?" Lin Yao looked outside the abandoned freight shed. Retreat. But not chaotically. He took out the prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command in Xu Fang's diversion grain bag. Used the battlefield diversion method. Xu Fang immediately nodded. This time, it was not a test inside the observation cavity. It was being used on the real battlefield of the Old Salt Road. The evacuation team split into 5 columns. First column, those who withdrew. Second column, those with temporary names. Third column, observers. Fourth column, contaminated or high-risk evidence. Fifth column, combat guards. Each column had a different wooden tag marker. Fang Jian was responsible for the withdrawal slogans. Zhan was responsible for stabilizing the temporary name subjects. Song Yuan was responsible for concealing observers and third-party markers. Zhao Tai was responsible for the rear guard. Lin Yao stayed in the center, using the prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command to stabilize the whole group. The team had just left the abandoned freight shed when orderly military steps sounded from the direction of the relay station. The L series appeared. This time, they were not merely being shown from a distance. They were pressing toward the abandoned freight shed. 20 living military command bearers moved in 2 rows. Gray-black number plates flickered on their chests. They spoke at the same time. Withdrawal subjects, return to formation. Temporary name subjects, return to 0. Observers, leave the field. Obstructors, remove. Fang Jian's face instantly went white. Luo Wence had already begun countering them. The L series were no longer only calling marked subjects back into formation. They had begun issuing different commands against withdrawal subjects, temporary name subjects, and observers. The warning from the observation cavity had arrived faster than expected. Lin Yao tightened his grip on the prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command. This would be the first time the Lord's sacrificial command was used on a real battlefield. He raised the token. His voice was steady. The Obsidian Four Principles. First, a human name may not be permanently replaced by a number. Second, consent under insufficient disclosure may be withdrawn. Third, military command may not stand above the right to withdraw. Fourth, responsibility can be traced, separated, and repaired. The token lit up. The chaos in the evacuation team was pressed down. But the L series did not stop. The true evacuation battle had begun. This time, Obsidian Village did not only need to win the rules. They had to bring the people back alive. When the L series approached, the night outside the old Salt Road relay station seemed to be cut into two halves. One half was the normal supply point under dim yellow lamps. In the distance, some players still stood in front of stalls without understanding what was happening, looking toward the abandoned freight shed in alarm. The other half was the battlefield pressed forward by gray-black military command. 20 L series subjects stood in 2 rows. They did not roar. They did not run. Their breathing did not even quicken. They simply advanced step by step. Every step fell in the same rhythm. Withdrawal subjects, return to formation. Temporary name subjects, return to 0. Observers, leave the field. Obstructors, remove. The overlapping voices became orders, like a net descending over the evacuation team. Those who had just been rescued from the underground warehouse and withdrawn reacted first. Some clutched their heads. Some tried to walk toward the L series. The temporary name subjects also became unstable. Gray Road gripped his own wrist tightly, repeating the temporary name he had just chosen. Gray Road. Gray Road. I am Gray Road. But what the L series shouted was return to 0. That phrase was crueler than return to formation. It did not want the temporary name subjects to return to the team. It wanted to reduce the temporary names themselves back to 0. Jean immediately rushed to the side of the temporary name column. Do not listen to return to 0. A temporary name is not an error. Gray Road, Clear Sky, Broken Wood, Late Tide, report your temporary names. The 4 temporary name subjects spoke while trembling. Gray Road. Clear Sky. Broken Wood. Late Tide. The record of the nameless lit up, barely blocking the first wave of the return to 0 command. On the other side, Fang Jian led the withdrawal column. His voice was already very hoarse, but he forced himself to recite. Withdrawal subjects do not return to formation. Withdrawal is not betrayal. Consent under insufficient disclosure can be withdrawn. Recall clauses are not valid. The contract withdrawal register lit up with him. But the voices of the L series pressed down again. Withdrawal invalid. Procedure correction. Return to formation. When Fang Jian heard procedure correction, his face went pale for a moment. That was replacement language often used by the second research group in Luo Wence's line. It had once pressed down his own language and turned him into B11. Jean immediately looked at him. Fang Jian. Fang Jian took a deep breath. My name is Fang Jian. Not B11. Procedure correction is not the same as voluntary consent. Safety observation is not the same as detention. Risk termination is not the same as protection. With every sentence, his voice steadied a little. The withdrawal column also stabilized a little. Lin Yao stood in the center of the team, holding the prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command. He could feel that the token was still incomplete. It was not a mature Lord's sacrificial command and could not suppress an entire L-series formation all at once. But it could turn the Obsidian Four Principles into short battlefield commands. Diversion columns, withdraw according to tags. He gave the order. Xu Fang immediately threw the diversion wooden tags from the grain bag. The wooden tags landed on the ground, forming 5 faint lines of light. Withdrawal. Temporary name. Observation. Evidence. Guard. The evacuation team had almost fallen into total disorder. Once the 5 lines of light appeared, everyone finally knew where they were supposed to go. This was not a combat power boost. But it was more important than combat power. What mixed crowds feared most was not knowing where to go. Once someone ran chaotically, the L-series could use military command to pull them back one by one. Xu Fang shouted, "Look at the wooden tags. Withdrawal subjects, take the left line. Temporary name subjects, take the middle line. Evidence does not mix with people. High-risk subjects do not enter the withdrawal team." His voice did not carry Lin Yao's authority, nor did it have Fang Jian's recitation power. But it was very clear. Clear enough for the newly rescued people to understand. Zhao Tai led the guard column at the rear. Facing 20 L-series subjects, his palms were covered in sweat. Not because he feared death. Because he feared he would fail to hold back. These people were still alive. But when they attacked, they would not hold back. The first row of L-series subjects rushed close. Obstructors, remove. 3 short blades stabbed toward Zhao Tai at the same time. Zhao Tai swept the back of his blade horizontally, knocking aside 2 blades, then used his shoulder to slam away the third person. He did not cut necks or sever wrists. Every blow landed on shoulders, ribs, and legs, places that could make people lose balance without causing immediate death. But the opponents showed no hesitation from pain. They fell and stood again. They advanced even while injured. Zhao Tai gritted his teeth. This stuff is really annoying. Song Yuan stood beside the observation column, the stone bead rotating rapidly. He did not participate in the main fight. Instead, he stared at the L-series subjects whose fate lines fluctuated most clearly. Left second is reversible. Right third is high risk. 2 rear command reciters. Fate lines pulled externally. Lin Yao immediately marked with the Lord's sacrificial command. Reversible enters temporary record. High risk enters suppression. Command reciters interrupted, no killing. Zhao Tai's head ached from listening. Say it slower. Xu Fang immediately followed with diversion wooden tags, projecting different marks onto the ground. Red wooden tags indicated high risk. White wooden tags indicated reversible. Black wooden tags indicated command reciters. Zhao Tai finally understood. Should have done it like this earlier. He rushed toward the command reciter marked by a black wooden tag and smashed the recitation rhythm apart with the back of his blade. The L-series formation showed its first obvious misalignment. The evacuation team took the chance to advance. But Luo Wence did not let them evacuate smoothly. From the direction of the relay station, a black signal suddenly lit up. More players turned around from the supply point. They were not L-series. They were Greycloak collaborators and ordinary hired players. They blocked the evacuation route. Someone among them shouted loudly. Obsidian Village is stealing people. They are destroying voluntary training. Do not let them run. With that shout, ordinary players in the distance began to stir. Some did not know the truth and really thought Obsidian Village was stealing mission personnel. Lin Yao's eyes darkened. Luo Wence did not only use military command. He also used public opinion. If the evacuation team was blocked by ordinary players, the situation would become even more chaotic. Lin Yao raised the contract withdrawal register and said loudly, "The old Salt Road training field contains hidden erasure clauses. Exiting requires triple breach compensation and low-level material repayment. Military command failures may be risk terminated. The evidence is here." He threw the illuminated black-gray agreement scroll into the air. The prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command lit up. The hidden clauses in the agreement were enlarged into a gray-white curtain of light, appearing before all players. During temporary abandonment of name, individual name memory may be sealed. Military command priority stands above individual withdrawal will. In cases of mission failure, contamination, loss of control, or escape from formation, risk termination may be activated. Exit requires repayment of all advanced resources and training costs. The ordinary players who had been stirring immediately fell silent. Someone cursed in a low voice. What the hell is risk termination? Low-level material repayment? Isn't that selling people? My friend accepted a special guard mission too. The faces of the Greycloak collaborators all changed. Public opinion bit back. Zhao Tai seized the opportunity, and the rearguard team advanced quickly. But the L series still pursued relentlessly. At that moment, a horn sounded from the southern slope. Not the enemy. Dragon Court players. Xu He had arrived with the outer support team. Lin Yao. Go north. The outer support team deployed temporary chevaude-frise and isolation cloth barriers. Bai Ji, Guan, Duli, Gao Jun, and the others were already prepared to receive them in the rear. Lin Yao ordered. All diversion columns, enter the support point. Fang Jian led the withdrawal subjects first. Zhan followed with the temporary name subjects. Song Yuan brought the observers and the evidence line. Zhao Tai, Xu Fang, and Lin Yao withdrew last. The L series did not charge into the support point. They stopped outside the barriers and spoke at the same time. Obsidian Village. Temporary obstruction successful. Data recorded. Correct next time. After speaking, the 20 L series subjects retreated in perfect order. No anger. No uncontrolled pursuit. Like a test had ended and the team automatically withdrew. That was more unsettling than a death battle. Because Luo Wence really was learning. Lin Yao watched them retreat toward the relay station, the prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command warming faintly in his hand. In this battle, Obsidian Village had brought the people out. But Luo Wence had also obtained more data. Next time, the L series would certainly be more complete. On the way back to Obsidian Village, no one spoke. The team was too long. And too complicated. More than 10 withdrawal subjects. For temporary named subjects. Several observers. One gray-robed instructor. Erasure bead, agreement scrolls, military command tokens, medicine residue, training name lists, and a copy of the third-level observation records. Every item required separate handling. Every person also could not be mixed together. Xu Fang carried the diversion wooden tags all the way, shouting until his throat was hoarse. Withdrawal subjects, do not mix with temporary name subjects. Temporary name subjects, watch Zhan. Observers, follow Song Yuan. Evidence sealed. Do not touch. High-risk markers, go to Bai Ji's side. He shouted urgently and exhaustedly, but he did not stop. Because once he stopped, the team would fall into disorder. Lin Yao watched and had already confirmed in his heart that the battlefield diversion method had to be institutionalized. This was not Xu Fang's personal improvisation. It was a core procedure Obsidian Village would need in the future when facing large-scale mixed contamination incidents. When they returned to the southern gate of Obsidian Village, dawn was almost breaking. Gao Mu personally stood at the gate. Behind him were Uncle Zhou, Shen Luo, Lu Chang, and the entrance to the newly expanded second isolation shed. Seeing the long evacuation team, Gao Mu's expression did not change. He only asked, "Dead?" Lin Yao answered, "None." Gao Mu nodded. "Severe injuries?" 2L series projections severely injured. Not physical bodies. Evacuees have mild to moderate contamination. Many military command reactions. The gray-robed instructor is high risk. Gao Mu looked at Zhao Tai. "You?" Zhao Tai rolled his shoulder. "Still standing." Gao Mu said flatly, "Then go wash off contamination." Zhao Tai originally wanted to say he was fine, but seeing Gao Mu's eyes, he immediately changed his answer. "Yes." The southern gate immediately began return to village tallying. This process was more complex than when they returned from the defeated army pit. Because the defeated army pit had mainly brought back high-risk objects and a small number of contaminated people. What the old Salt Road brought back was an entire group of people in different states. Uncle Joe stood at the first table. Withdrawal subjects, left column. Temporary name subjects, middle column. Observers, right column. Collaborators and those pending responsibility judgment, rope-sealed column. Evidence, ceiling table. Lu Cheng arranged people to guide them. Bai Ji and Guan performed initial screening. Fang Jian sat beside the withdrawal column and recited withdrawal slogans in a low voice. Zhan sat beside the temporary name column and confirmed their temporary names one by one. Gray road. Clear sky. Broken wood. Late tide. At first, the four temporary name subjects still instinctively flinched. But Zhan did not force them to answer their original names. He only asked them to confirm. "Is this the temporary name you chose yourself? Do you currently preserve the right to change or restore your name in the future? Do you refuse to be returned to zero by military command?" With every confirmation, the record of the nameless lit up once. This method gradually calmed the four of them. For the first time, they felt that refusing to say their original names did not mean they would be swallowed. Uncle Joe personally wrote down a new classification. Temporary name area. Purpose: receive those who temporarily refused their original names, preserve the rights to temporary name change, register restoration, and responsibility repair. Taboos: temporary names may not be used as replacements for numbers, temporary names may not be used to evade existing responsibility, original names may not be forced out. After this section was written, the second isolation shed gained a new sub-area. A system prompt appeared. Second isolation shed expanded, temporary name area. Obsidian Village's placement capacity for voluntary name abandonment recruits has increased. On the withdrawal side, Fang Jian could barely speak anymore. Bai Ji forced him to drink medicine and rest. But he shook his head. "One last round." Bai Ji frowned. "Your throat will be damaged." Fang Jian said softly, "Before, it was taken and used to harm people. Now, if it can save one more, then one more." Bai Ji was silent for a moment, then handed the medicine to him. "Drink it before reciting." Fang Jian obeyed. He knew he could not collapse. But he was also beginning to learn not to force himself until he lost control. That, too, was an Obsidian Village rule. Being able to do something did not mean one should consume oneself into a tool. The gray-robed instructor was brought outside the responsibility judgment area. He remained silent the entire time. Only when he saw He-Jin did his eyes move. He-Jin was inside the purification room, watching him through the transparent talisman screen. The two looked at each other. He-Jin suddenly smiled. So Luo Wence's people have days like this too? The gray-robed instructor said coldly, a black account merchant like you has no right to judge Mr. Luo. He-Jin's expression sank. Mr. Luo? He will complete the new army. The gray-robed instructor said, people like you, who only understand transactions, will never understand. He-Jin seemed to be stabbed by those words. He had once thought he saw far. Now, in the eyes of Luo Wence's believer, he was only a low-level merchant. Lin Yao had people lock the gray-robed instructor separately in a room for pending responsibility judgment. This person could not be placed together with He-Jin. He-Jin belonged to the black account trading line. The gray-robed instructor belonged to the military command believer line. Their contamination logic was different. If they were held together, they would stimulate each other. Shen Luo nodded after hearing the arrangement. Correct. He-Jin turns everything into trade. The gray-robed instructor turns everything into obedience. If the two are placed together, they will either attack each other or use each other. Uncle Zhou recorded. Responsibility Judgment Area New Classifications, Transaction Type Responsible Person, Military Command Type Responsible Person. Mixed custody is forbidden before evaluation. Lin Yao handed the results of the third-level observation cavity to Uncle Zhou. When Uncle Zhou saw the prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command, his hand visibly paused. This is the prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command. Everyone inside the council house looked over. Gao Mu's eyes moved slightly. Su Qingli said directly. This means the War Soul altar conditions have advanced again. Lin Yao nodded. We still lack the main flame of the War Soul Fire Seed and the altar base stone. Lu Cheng asked, any clues about the base stone? Song Yuan spoke. It may be deep inside the third level of the old Salt Road. Everyone looked at him. Song Yuan had just completed return to village name registration. His name was still in the companion register. He had not restored concealment over his basic record. That at least proved he was still willing to follow the agreement. Song Yuan explained. The observation cavity was only the outer chamber of the third level. There should be deeper rule sediments inside. If a foreign object once formed a node on the old Salt Road, the base stone may be the stabilizing object of that node. Luo Wence may also be looking for it. Lin Yao frowned. In other words, they had to enter the old Salt Road again. But not now. The people brought back this time had to be handled. The prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command needed to be stabilized. The contract withdrawal register and the temporary name area both had to be institutionalized. If they rushed in again, something would go wrong. At that moment, a reality synchronization prompt suddenly appeared. Warning, reality side rule fluctuation increasing. Prototype of the Lord's sacrificial command has produced a weak projection. The contract withdrawal register, the right of temporary name, and the battlefield diversion method have been externally observed. Lin Yao's eyes darkened. Almost at the same time, his real-world phone began vibrating. Xinwan sent 3 messages in a row. What did you just do? The second research group's monitoring room exploded. Not literally exploded. Everyone is arguing. Lin Yao returned to reality and picked up his phone. Xinwan's 4th message appeared. They observed a projection of a command token. Someone is demanding immediate contact with you. Not tomorrow. Not a procedural interview. Tonight. Lin Yao looked at the pitch-black night outside the window. Inside the game, he had just brought people back to Obsidian Village. In reality, the second research group had finally lost its patience.